Hi everybody, this is Debbie from the Inspiration Station. Thank you for joining me today. In today's video, I'll be making a single page layout using the Echo Park Little Builder line. Now you will notice there is not much on my desk. I am using very minimal supplies. The only thing I had for this line is the 6x6 pad. I did have some cardstock that matched perfectly. It's not from this line, it's actually from the Echo Park Pet line, but the colors worked great, so I didn't have to go buy the matching Little Builder cardstock. I also decided to bring in some black cardstock to mat the photos. I thought that would help them pop off the page. I tend not to measure when I'm matting things. I'm not really good with a ruler, but this tonic trimmer has a finger guide on it, and if you line the photo up right with the edge of the finger guard and cut, it gives you a 1/8 inch border all the way around the photo. So I just eyeball the corner placement and then put it on and use the guide as my guide to trim those down. So now that I've got them matted on the black, this is the general layout of how I want them to go on the page. Now obviously it's very plain at this point. I decided to use the blue as a mat for the orange just to frame the photo in. So I'm going to start by cutting this down to 11.5, but I will go back and trim it again in a moment. Now I'm going to cut the center out of the paper, also known as gutting the paper that's going on the back, so that I don't waste it. This is actually the same sheet of paper. It's orange on one side, blue on the other, and I wanted to save it because I will probably have more photos to document with these type of pictures, and so I wanted to save what I could. So I liked that, but I decided I wanted to bring the black in to frame the orange a little bit better. Now I have a ton of black cardstock, so I'm not going to bother gutting that one, but I am cutting it down to the 11.5, and then I went back to cut down the orange to 11.25. And that way I'll get like 1/8 of an inch around the orange and 1/4 of an inch on the black, and I think that looks much more finished that way. So back to laying these out. What I have is just a cut apart card there. It says ready, set, dig, and a little strip with road signs on it. That is all that I have for this page from that paper pad. I did cut another piece of that cut apart paper to mat the title a little offset, but I felt that it was very plain. And so I went to my stash and I dug out several different stencils. I never stencil. I have this box full of stencils and I never use them. So I decided I was going to give it a try. I pulled out both black and brown ink to test it out to see how I liked it. Once I got to the brown, I said, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to show up on the orange. So that went by the wayside pretty quick. So I did go back to the black. I had a couple of designs I thought might work. One was that diamond pattern. One looks more like cobblestone. And so I just wanted to test it out, and I thought that the diamond would be the best choice for that. So I'm going to take the orange paper and my stencil and just put some ink in the lower left. I'm blotting it off on the scrap paper before I start because I don't want a harsh line where I'm putting the brush down. Sometimes when you go directly from the ink pad onto your project, you get a very sharp line, the shape of the tool that you're using, and I didn't want that. So I just tap it off on a scrap piece of paper. And I'm bringing the photos back in to see where they're going to land in relation to the stenciling. I decided I needed some down here in the lower right. I was a little heavier handed on this one, and I liked the look better, so I actually go back to the upper right, try to line the stencil up and add just a little bit more ink to that section. Most of this does get covered up, but there's enough peeking out that I think it gives it some interest. I also use the black ink to edge the cut apart pieces because they do have a white core, and I didn't want that white core being visible. The page, has very bold colors, and I thought the white would be a distraction. So I just inked both the title piece and the backing piece. I'm going to offset that just a little bit, and that's pretty much all I'm going to do to that. I did decide that it needed to be popped off the page, so I will eventually put some foam tape behind it. So I'm going to tape these background pieces down. Now normally I use double-sided tape, and I don't know why I grabbed the ATG to start, but The reason that I use double stick tape when I'm doing this is because I can just peel back part of the release paper and stick the paper down, and then once it's where I want it, I pull the release paper off. That way, if it's not lined up perfectly when I first put it down, I don't have to rip the whole thing up. But I found these great little spacers. I actually put a link below to Amazon, and they're just acrylic spacers in a variety of sizes. I think they go from 1/8 of an inch up to 7/8 of an inch. And all I have to do is put the paper that the base is into some sort of positioning tool. In this case, it's my score tool, my scoring board, and you slide that up into the upper corner so it doesn't move, and then you can put the spacing tool in the corner. And when you lay it down, you get the perfect lineup all the way around the paper. So I did use 2 different sizes here because I had the different depths of the cardstock. This time I ended up using the ATG because I wasn't going to worry about the placement. The spacers made me confident that it was going to go where it needed to go. So I'm just lining that up to make sure that it's stable. I hold it in place over there on the left, and then just tuck that right into the corner, and it's perfect. It lines up beautifully. So I highly recommend those spacer tools. I'm going to set those aside, bring my photos back in, and see how that's looking. I like it. I don't have a lot of, I have no embellishments really. I decided to use this little border piece that came from the cut apart sheet. I did have to trim it down because I trimmed my photos down to 5.5 to get them to fit on the page. I didn't need them the full 6 inches. So I did trim that down, and I'm going to end up tucking that under the upper photo and then putting the next photo on top of it. So I really liked this. It brought in some brightness. It brought a few more elements in. Again, I have no supplies for this, so I'm just using what I have, very minimal, but I think in the end it comes out really cute. So let's tape all this down. I got my foam tape here. I decided that that block still needed a little something. So I went to my stash and I found a piece of brown pattern paper. It was actually an old Tim Holtz piece to put on the opposite side, so it's like a offset mat on the right. I tried a couple of different things that I ended up not using, but here's that brown piece of paper, and I'm going to offset that to the right, and then that little piece there, that scrap, that's what I punched that circle out of, and it had the stripes on it, and I figured why waste it? So I'm just going to tape that to the back of my block, get those little stripes sticking out. It brings more color to that corner. I really like the way that looks. I didn't need those little extra pieces on, so I'm just snipping those off to, you know, free up the adhesive. So that's going to go in that corner there. I like the way this is coming out. That circle there was punched from the cut apart, and it says something like not so fragile, but handle with care anyway, something like that. I can't read it on the small screen, but I thought it was really cute because my granddaughter is in that picture and she is not so fragile. She can keep up with the boys with no problem. So that went down, and if you look, I have nothing else on the desk but enamel dots. I did forget I needed to go back and add my journaling, and to create the journaling I actually used a die from Scrapbooking Cards Today, and it is similar to the Hero Arts sentiment strip die that I use, but this one has 2 different sizes. It has 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch. So the 3/8 inch works perfectly as a mat for the 1/4 inch. So I really liked how that worked. I'm sorry that some of this is off the screen. I actually sat down to do this, and so I didn't realize I was lower than the camera angle. But I'm going to lay those down. You see a pink piece of paper there? That is a piece of Post-it tape. And my pieces were sliding all over the place, so it was making me crazy. So I just stuck them to the Post-it tape to keep them held in place. That was what I happened to have with me. But that worked. It kept them in place. So I'm going to trim off a little bit because I didn't line them up perfectly centered. I'm going to trim off the ends on the right. And then I will put them onto the page. So when I set them down on the page, I am going to use my ruler just to get the first one on, because I want to make sure that the first one is straight. I wear bifocals, so I don't always get things perfectly straight. So the ruler helps with that. I am using some foam strips here that I'm not sure if they were from scrapbook.com or Scrapbook Adhesives. I buy them from both places. but I actually want to get some black ones. I think scrapbook.com has black foam strips, and I haven't ordered them yet, but they are in my cart. I think that would be really handy. So here I'm bringing the ruler in to make sure that my first strip is straight. After that, I'll just eyeball it. I will offset them a little bit. I'm going to kind of stagger them, but you'll notice I don't press those top ones down immediately. I just sort of set them in place because I want to be able to stand up and look at it and make sure that they are evenly spaced before I press them down fully, and that looked pretty good to me. So then I went to my stash of enamel dots and pulled out a couple of colors I thought might work. I put some yellow ones here on the right. I'm going to put some black ones over on the left. There is a little teeny tiny black one that I'm going to put onto that little digger. There's like a hinge or a pin in that hinge that I thought was really cute, so I just stuck one on there. Thought it looked good. So that's it. I used one sheet of 6x6 paper and some stenciling, and that was it. So very, very minimal supplies, so you can do it without spending a fortune. I want to thank you for joining me today. Please give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.